Now we'll move on to agriculture credit. Next heading, agricultural credit. This will take some time. So we have completed agriculture investment, then agriculture credit. After that we'll discuss, I guess, agriculture insurance, then agricultural marketing. So under agriculture credit, it is of two types. Institutional credit and non-institutional credit. What's the difference? Any idea? Only government? It means private sector will not come here. It will get the loan from Axis Bank. Where it will come? Institutional, non-institutional. So why we are saying that it is only government? No. No. What's the main difference?
So these are local
Money lender. Okay. So difference between formal and informal credit. This is what I want to say. Institutional credit means comes from formal sources, and this is informal sources. So here institutional credits like scheduled commercial banks. So here I am not saying only public sector banks, all the scheduled commercial banks, including public sector bank, private sector bank, as well as foreign banks, including NABARD, RBI, etc. Here non-institutional credit generally deals with individual lenders, money lenders, agricultural agents. These are the things come under non-institutional credit. Which one is better for agriculture? What do you think which contributes highest amount in comparison to these two? Which contributes more in agriculture credit in India? Institutional or non-institutional? Non. So how many of you are saying non? 1, 2, 3. 3 is to 2. And you both are saying that institutional credit is more in comparison to, or this one? Institutional. So your answer is, in the present situation, institutional credit is more, but in the past, it means before 1969. 1969 means nationalization of banks. So before the nationalization of banks, non-institutional sources contributes higher amount in comparison to the institutional credit. So in the present situation, institutional credit contributes more to agriculture credit in comparison to this other. Percentage amount is 25 to 30% comes from non-institutional sources. Here 70 to 75. Under institutional credits, scheduled commercial banks, cooperative banks, third one RRBs. These are the major. Under non-institutional credit, money lenders contributes the major part. If you want to write other names, names are different but roles are same. Money lenders, you write individual lenders. Third one you write agricultural agents. Another difference is, this is formal, this is informal.
In case of self-employed, they get the credit from the institutional sources. But if they provide support to their members, that should be included in institutional or non-institutional.
I'll tell you in a minute. This particular institutional credit is regulated by some authority. That is also the difference. It means these are regulated and these are unregulated. If these loans are regulated by RBI or NABARD, then it will come under institutional sources. So generally self-help groups are registered. So that is why that will come here in institutional credit. If these are not registered, like for example, we make a society, voluntary society. We are not making any registration in any formal sources like NABARD, RRB, etc. Then our credit will come under non-institutional. Kaise? Pooling of the funds. We'll give loans to the individual one by one. Chit funds और ये सब आप जो पढ़ते हैं ना, these are unregulated. Same, these are same person with the different names. Here agriculture agents means broker. Here you find property brokers. On the same lines you will find agricultural agents. What they will do? They will act as a middleman between the farmer and the lender. आपको पता है कि इस एरिया में there are a lot of vacant properties. Landlord knows that I have one vacant house, vacant room. But who will act as a bridge? These agents, brokers. उसमें क्या है? आप घर घर जाओगे ढूंढने, they will not give you. If you come through a broker, then they will give you. So on the same lines, they have created one kind of layer in between farmer and the lenders. Obviously, whenever you will find a lot of middlemen, then there will be a case of high exploitation. So here under institutional, so under non-institutional, this prevailed around about 1950s and 60s. Later on, when we done a nationalization of banks, the role of money lender started going down. So in the current situation, we have around 25 to 30% of credit comes from non-institutional sources, that is also known as informal sources or unregulated sources. So these are regulated by RBI and NABARD and these are unregulated. ठीक, अभी आपने कुछ लिखा है क्या साथ में? बनाया ना सिर्फ, तो I'll dictate. You're right. Agricultural credit are of two types. Agricultural credit are of two types. Institutional credit, which is regulated by RBI or NABARD, which is regulated by RBI or NABARD, and all the formal sources such as credit from cooperative societies, scheduled commercial banks and RRBs comes under it. Full stop. Next paragraph. Non-institutional sources of credit. Non-institutional sources of credit are unregulated and generally comes under informal source of agricultural credit provided by the agents such as money lenders and individual lenders. Full stop. Next paragraph. After independence, majority of the credit was from yes please was from non-institutional sources and later on from 1970s it shifted towards institutional form of credit. Full stop. Currently 25 to 30% credit currently 25 to 30% credit comes from non-institutional sources. Comes from non-institutional sources. Comes from non-institutional sources. ठीक है. Now, why people still prefer non-institutional sources? If the question comes into mains examination, that if you have proper institutional sources of credit, then why still people preferring money lenders, etc.?
Marginal farmers do not have the awareness.
Awareness, ठीक है. Proper documents. That is documents, collateral. Yes, proper.
So quick money lending. To get the loan very quickly.
Quick access. ठीक है. Documentation, quick access. And your point is collateral. So saying that awareness. Behavior issue like
They feel closeness to the money lenders.
no, we cannot say this. They do not feel. That is out of compulsion they have to take from money lenders. The main reason here is of collateral. It means we need to provide some kind of security in order to avail the loan. If you are not having a big land, big assets, then bank will not give you the loan. Second one is the process is very easy. Like whenever you compare with other loans, like if you have taken a house loan, a car loan, then there is an EMI every month on a fixed date. So banks, that EMI is auto debited from your account. Auto debited means they will automatically cut from your account. So you have to keep some amount of money into that particular account so that every month that they will cut your particular EMI. But here in under money lender, there are certain kind of flexibilities. Like suppose this month you are not able to provide a timely EMI, then this money lender will give you a time of 1 month extra. Like landlords होते हैं, they'll take loan, they take rent every month. But what happened after that? If you are suppose living there for 5 to 10 years, then obviously they will give some 2-3 months. That after 2 months you will give the rent of 2 months at 1 point. Getting my point? So here the flexibility is more in comparison to the formal sources. So two things most important: collateral and flexibility. So you write first heading non-institutional sources. Because it is very short, so we'll first discuss non-institutional, then institutional. Farmers prefer non-institutional sources of credit, because of two reasons. Two main reasons you write. Because of two main reasons. First one, the amount of collateral demanded by money lenders is very negligible, or they can give without collateral. Second point, the flexibility under non-institutional sources are more in comparison to the institutional sources. The flexibility under non-institutional sources are more in comparison to institutional sources. So in bracket you write flexibility of time, flexibility of EMI, etc. Next line. Other benefits of non-institutional sources of credit. Other benefits of non-institutional sources of credit, such as easy accessibility with less documentation. Easy accessibility with less documentation. First stop. Both the parties are known to each other. Both the parties are known to each other. So the recovery is much better. So the recovery is much better. Full stop. Now will tell me what are the demerits.
Recovery is much better.
It means when you know the person, you can recover the loan in case of default. But in case of bank, you don't know the customer. There is no know your customer form, but personally you do not know. Like for example, suppose there are two persons, they will demand some money from me. If I know you, I will give. There is more likely chances that I will give you some amount of money in case of any shortage. Getting my point? जैसे कुछ स्टूडेंट्स हैं वो बोलते हैं कि सर थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम है, वी नीड सम मनी, तो विल गिव दैट फॉर सर्टेन पीरियड. If I don't know that student, still this person is a student. But if I don't know, then obviously there is likely chances that I will not give money. Getting my point? So that is if they are known to each other, because generally money lenders acting in a particular region like village, district, etc. So they cannot go beyond that particular region. A money lender of maybe Delhi will not give loan to a person living in Kolkata. But banks are doing this. So risks are high of default. Here you can extract your loan amount by anything, like by using force, by using other methods. Getting my point? So here this is flexibility is more. What are the demerits? The biggest demerit of
Unregulated interest rate.
they charge exorbitant high interest rate. So exorbitant interest rate means suppose banks are giving loan at 8%, 7%, they will give around 16%, 17%. That is my personal experience. I've seen, because there was one friend of mine in Bhopal. He was a individual lender. So he actually lends to the shopkeepers. And on a daily basis, he gets some amount of money. So एक बार मैं गया उनके साथ, वो आउट ऑफ स्टेशन थे, तो एक बार उनके साथ गया, अगले दिन 2-3 दिन मुझे ये चीज़ करनी थी. When I was in graduation. तो डेली का 5,000, 7,000. जब मैं घर आया तो it was around 50 to 60,000. तब मुझे रियलाइज़ हुआ कि द इफेक्ट ऑफ मनी लेंडर इज़ क्वाइट हाई. तब मुझे रियलाइज़ नहीं हुआ था, बाद में जब मैंने स्टार्टेड रीडिंग तब मुझे रियलाइज़ हुआ कि द मनी लेंडर्स आर एक्चुअली कुछ नहीं करना होता, जाके शॉप पे खड़ा होना होता है, दे विल गिव यू मनी, वापस आ जाओ, शाम के 2 घंटे ये किया, वापस आ जाओ. दैट इज़ द रोल ऑफ दैट पर्सन. सो मनी लेंडर्स, नो रिटर्न वर्क, नो कुछ. सो इफ यू आर गिविंग 7,000 rupees टू समवन, ऑब्वियसली यू विल टेक इन राइटिंग. So that is the main. So you write the biggest drawback of non-institutional source of credit is that they charge exorbitant interest rate. And they also exploit farmers. Yeah, done. Now we come on to the institutional credit. First you write cooperative societies or cooperative banks. Cooperative banks. So any idea about cooperative banks? Cooperative banks, generally what they will do, they are the part of some cooperative society. Suppose we are having a cooperative society, we make one bank just to fund our activity and just to give loans to the needy people in our society. So these are actually pooling of funds by certain individuals, and that individuals will lend only to the members of the cooperative societies. Getting my point? So these loans are available only to the members of the society. It means the member of other or outside the particular society, they will not be able to achieve this particular objective of getting loan from a particular cooperative society. So first you have to become a member, then you can avail the facility. So first is pooling of funds. Now what are the benefits of cooperative? If we compare these three, the interest rate in cooperative society is comparatively lesser when we compare with scheduled commercial banks. What's the meaning of commercial banks? I told you in the banking class that commercial banks, the word commercial means they are there to earn profit. They are not for the welfare of the society. So here cooperative banks are for the welfare of that members, welfare of the society. So obviously if we compare the interest rate between these two, cooperative society charges low interest rate. Yes? Less interest rate. So cooperative societies generally charge lower interest rate. Here lower interest rate means lower than commercial banks. What are the benefits of charging low interest rate? That these are the substitute of money lenders in the rural areas. Getting my point? So here cooperative societies are backed by some act known as Cooperative Societies Act. There are two acts, 1912 and 1904. So there are two acts, Cooperative Societies Acts, and these two acts actually binded these cooperative society to charge lower interest rate. Now around 20% of institutional credit comes from cooperative societies. 20% of institutional credit. Getting my point? So among this 100% of institutional credit, 20% comes from cooperative banks. These cooperative banks works on 3-tier structure. Any idea? State level, district level and rural level. Village or rural area. Because sometimes village is confined to a particular area. So 2 or 3 villages will come together. So that is why we generally say a rural area. We can say village, that is also not wrong. But generally 2-3 villages are combined and provided one cooperative societies. So you write this information, what I have discussed.
Some societies are there in the BSNL and then my father was in that. So their society for that particular organization. So what should we call it? State level or?
It depends. If they have their bank, here we are talking about cooperative banks, works under the ambit of cooperative society. Like for example, you know that Ecoholics, you know, this my initiative of free education. Of that Ecoholics, I am trying to register as a society. If it becomes society, then I cannot provide loan because I am not having a bank, cooperative bank. Getting my point? If I want to provide certain kind of loan, that particular cooperative society is binded by some bylaws. There are some bylaws that I have to make, and these bylaws I have to register under Cooperative Societies Act. Then it becomes society. Then there are members of the society. So there are 7 members, minimum 7 members you require, from director to secretary to etc., treasurer. So that is the society. That is not the bank. So you can make n number of society. There is no compulsion or no regulation of that. But if you are making cooperative banks, suppose these societies will make bank, then they will do some kind of banking activities. But that will come under Reserve Bank of India. So it depends. अगर आपके सोसाइटी में बैंक है तो अलग चीज़ है, वैसे बैंक होता नहीं है. लैंडिंग करते हैं, तो वो आपस में होता है. दैट इज रेगुलेटेड बाय बाय लॉज. तो आपकी जो सोसाइटी होगी उसको कुछ बाय लॉज होंगे. Like whenever you build an organization, like Kalan Academy, तो राशिद सर ने भी एक HR पॉलिसी बनाई. So everything is binded by some regulations. सबकी HR पॉलिसी होती है. When you go to private organization, when you go to government organization, इसमें कुछ bylaws होते हैं, वो आपको follow करना है. So it depends on the bylaws, if they are allow lending to the members, if they allow lending to other members as well. वो आपके ऊपर है. So you can avail these kind of facility. So that totally discretionary on the basis of cooperative societies. So it depends on the different cooperative societies. ठीक, any doubt? ये वैसे नहीं पूछेंगे, but आपका doubt था तो मैं बताऊँ. Because they are interested only in cooperative banks. So we write this information. Cooperative banks comes under cooperative societies. Cooperative banks comes under cooperative societies where a voluntary pooling of funds, is done to provide loan to the members of the society, First off, these cooperative banks works under three-tier structure. Cooperative banks works under three-tier structure. State level, district level, and a rural level. In rural level, you can write in a bracket village level. First off, the interest rate charged by cooperative banks, these cooperative banks is quite low. In comparison to commercial banks as well as non-institutional sources. First off, it was the important source of agricultural credit. Between 1950s and 1970. But after 1970s, the role of commercial banks started going up. Full stop. Cooperative society contributes around 20% of institutional credit. of institutional credit. Now second heading is scheduled commercial banks. Although थोड़ा ऊपर नीचे हो गया आपके फ्लो चार्ट से, ठीक है. Second heading is scheduled commercial banks. So 19 July 1969, Indian government started the process of nationalization. Under nationalization, first time 14 banks were nationalized. Here the process of nationalization means that government should take over all the private banks. So there were some limits, like if you have paid up capital of 50 crore rupees in 1969, then government will acquire you, as the process of nationalization began in 1969. So after 1969, the institutional credit were heavily tilted towards scheduled commercial banks, and the cooperative banks started declining. Now what happened? Because the main reason behind nationalization was because these private banks were not fulfilling the welfare nature of Indian state. So you know that under directive principles of state policy, it is clearly mentioned that India is a welfare state. So India should provide certain kind of facilities. So under it, finance is the most important thing, and that too agricultural finance. So to improve, to divert loan, because if you remember the discussion of our banking sector, Scheduled Commercial Bank before 1969 were giving loans to big industries. Why big industries? Because industrial loan is very beneficial from the income, from the perspective of bank's income. But whenever you are giving loans to agriculture sector, then there is a risk of what? Crop failure. It means risk of non-performing assets and default. So that is why agriculture credit is different from industrial credit. In industrial credit, you will get your amount, it means the principal as well as interest on time. But what happened in agriculture sector? In agriculture sector, the requirement of the loan is just before the cropping season, and they will repay after the cropping season. It means there is a lag of 4 or 5 months in between the sowing of the crop and the harvesting of the crop. Getting my point? So here, the Scheduled Commercial Bank contributes around 69 to 70% of institutional credit. So this was how much? 20%, and this is around 70%. So almost they make up 90%. So remaining is 10% RRBs that we'll discuss. Now under Scheduled Commercial Banks, there's one concept called PSL. What's the full form? Priority sector lending. So under priority sector lending, how much lending is mandatory for a bank to give to priority sectors?
40 to 45%.
My question is to priority sector. Your answer is different. My question was how much percentage of the loan for a bank required to give under priority sector lending? That is 40%. And this 40% is divided into 18% and 22%. 18% to agriculture and 22% to other priority sector. What are those other priority sector? So education, micro, small and medium enterprises. Later on we have added these exporters as well. Okay. So these 22% is for other sources and this 18% for agriculture sector. It means half of the priority sector lending should go towards agriculture sector. Because banks were reluctant in giving loans to agriculture, so that is why RBI made it mandatory to give this particular credit to agricultural sector. Now what do you think? That according to banks, this 40% is huge. So that is why later on government included educational loan as well. Because you know that interest rate on educational loan is around 15%, 16%, 20%. It depends on your education as well as whatever the course you are taking up. It means if you are going in an IIT, IIM, then the interest rate will be low. If you are going to some private college in foreign countries, where you will be sure that you will not get a job after the completion of the course, then the interest rate is very, very high. So it depends. So education loans yielding are very high for the bank's profitability, because we need to think about from bank's perspective as well. So what do you think? This 40% is high or low? It should be reduced or it should remain intact? It remains intact. What do you think? Yes, please. So according to Rangarajan committee in 1991, that committee suggested that priority sector lending should be reduced to 10%. So now you will realize that agriculture requires credit. If you reduce this, then agriculture will be in trouble. And when agriculture will be in trouble, it means the question on food security. And मैंने आपको कल ही बताया था, food से छेड़छाड़ नहीं करनी चाहिए. So here economy means your polity. So where your economy is in trouble, obviously the power at the center will always change. It's all about economics. Now we do not fight face to face. कहाँ होती है face to face war? So all are proxy wars, depending on economic situation. Like modern day war, depending on economics, like sanctions, etc. These are war, but not on a battlefield. Okay. So here, this is 18% priority sector lending. So you write few points.
Even when the scheduled commercial banks are charging high interest rate, why cooperative banks are not able to match up with this?
Because if you require suppose 5 lakh rupees, tractor कितने का आता है? 5 lakh, 6 lakh? कितने का आता है? कभी सोचा है? भोपाल में मैंने पूछा था तो एक कोई बोला था 1 लाख का. मैंने कहा वो वेस्पा आ रही है 1 लाख की, तो ट्रैक्टर कैसे आ सकता है?
स्कूटर 1 लाख का है?
वेस्पा का स्कूटर 1 लाख का है. मेरे फ्रेंड ने खरीदा 90,000 प्लस टैक्सेस, पेट्रोल भराओगे तो हो जाएगा 1 लाख रुपए. तो मैंने 1 लाख में ट्रैक्टर कैसे आएगा? सो ट्रैक्टर कॉस्ट अराउंड 6 to 10 लाख डिपेंडिंग ऑन किसका है, और उसमें भी फैसिलिटीज आती है, पावर. सो इफ यू वांट टू बाय अ ट्रैक्टर, व्हाट डू यू थिंक? कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स विल प्रोवाइड यू लोन? नो, because of their incapacity. They do not have funds, huge funds like 10 lakh rupees. So scheduled commercial banks, you will prefer heavy investment. ठीक है. So right. After 1969, the role of scheduled commercial bank has started increasing in the agricultural credit. Now you can connect Green Revolution with nationalization. First you implemented Green Revolution, modern inputs. For modern inputs you required funds. If banks are not giving funds, government started nationalization. Say in the last trip, I was telling you about linkages between Make in India, then Skill India, then Startup and Stand Up India. So this is the linkages between Green Revolution. So you are implementing modern inputs, but after 2-3 years you realize that to implement this Green Revolution effectively, you require funds. And for the availability of funds, we do not have sources. So government nationalized in the year 1969. Please repeat the sentence.
After 1969, the role of scheduled commercial banks started increasing in the agricultural credit.
Because of the requirement of modern inputs, after Green Revolution. First stop. 69 to 70% of the institutional credit, 69 to 70% of institutional credit comes from scheduled commercial banks. First stop. Generally, scheduled commercial banks are preferred by large farmers. And small farmers preferred cooperative societies. First off, scheduled commercial banks required high amount of collateral in order to provide loans to the farmers. First off, their interest rates are also high. In comparison to in comparison to cooperative banks. First stop. There is a concept of priority sector lending, under which the concept of priority sector lending, under which banks has to provide 40% of their A and BC adjusted net bank credit. 40% of their adjusted net bank credit to these priority sectors, such as agriculture, in bracket you write 18%, and other non-agricultural sectors, in bracket you write 22%. So here I will not make you write these non-agricultural sector because we have already written in the banking sector discussion. ठीक है, full stop. The 40% PSL is justified. The 40% PSL is justified because of the requirement of agricultural growth due to food security. So this is adjusted net bank credit, not NDTL, net demand and time liability is different. Adjusted net bank credit is like whatever the amount of loan forwarded by the bank. Some loan comes and some doesn't. So it should be adjusted for that loss under NP. So it should be adjusted. It means it is a net amount of total bank credit forwarded by a particular bank. Any doubt?